Hey there, it's Gary Parrish. It's Wednesday, February 9th, 2022. Welcome back to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting, dodo birds, and leaky black. Matt Norlander is here with me. He's at home in Connecticut. I'm in a hotel in New York City, as you can see if you're watching on YouTube. And if you are indeed watching on YouTube, please smash the like button like you're Brandon Davies. It's right in front of you. It costs you nothing, but it helps us. So knock that out while you're here. And while you're here, also, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button, too, if you haven't already done that. It matters. So please help us with that. We thank you in advance. Dead leg. Let's get right to it. Big one. Tuesday night inside Bud Walton Arena. Final score, Arkansas 80, #1 Auburn 76 in overtime. Before we get to the game and what it means for the Razorbacks, what it means for the Tigers, do you want to take back your Bud Walton slander from Sunday night's podcast? You asked me with a straight face. You said, which place going to be more hype on Tuesday night, Bud Walton or Mackey? And I told you Bud Walton. Just like that, you express skepticism.
Yeah,
so you're free to walk it back right now for our friends in the natural state if you want to.
No, not a shot. Did you see what happened at Mackey too? Did you see what Brad Underwood said after Purdue absolutely walloped Illinois?
Well, you can't. I can only hear what people say. I can't see it.
Did you see what Brad? Oh, I saw it on the graphic. That's why.
Well, it actually technically, I guess you could see what somebody said.
You could see it. I'm not walking it back. Bud Walton was awesome. Put out that poll. Mackey Arena won 2-1, by the way, against Bud Walton Arena. Mackey Arena is just a better spot. I don't know what to tell you. Arkansas fans, you're phenomenal. That was an incredible environment. But
you're not taking something into consideration that we've talked about multiple times on the podcast. I saw that Mackey Arena won the poll, but a lot of the anti-Purdue votes would come from Indiana fans in the state of Indiana, and as you know, their internet's out.
How's that Arkansas internet working out for you right now?
Woo, boy, it's strong.
Yeah,
it's strong. Although I will tell you, Bart Pullman, who's been a media member in the state of Arkansas for a long time, I used to go on his show all the time, and he pointed out last night that I used to come on for years and say, this is a sleeping giant, this Arkansas basketball program. When I was just a little child growing up on the other side of the mighty Mississippi, I can remember Arkansas being one of the biggest and baddest basketball programs in the entire country. And when they got a good team, that is one of the places in the SEC where people truly care and want to care. You just got to find the right guy to get it back to that point. And it appears that guy is Eric Musselman. I'd forgotten I'd said that a million times, but I appreciate Bart pointing it out to the Arkansas fans, because that distracted them from the fact that I did not have them ranked throughout this 8-game winning streak. With, by the way, I don't, if you're looking at entire body of work, you should not have had Arkansas ranked prior to last night. But, you know, when you're doing what they're doing now, 9 straight wins, they've now got multiple quadrant 1 wins, and they've got this massive victory over Auburn. I have moved the Razorbacks into the top 25-1.
Speaking of body of work.
Woo! Look at Muss.
Look at Muss. Obviously, anyone listening can't see this, but go ahead and find that tweet on there. Muss he's shirtless with his arm in a sling. So got off the floor, shirt came off. Just simply incredible. He wound up doing the post game on ESPN2 in the vomitorium. Got clear of that court storm. I was watching like a lot of stuff at once, and I was doing some radio, so I did not see. I think Katie Johnson of Auburn might have gotten caught up a little bit in that court storm. I'm glad it didn't. That seemed like it went off without any kind of incident there, and that's a good thing. But yes, clearly, to circle back to this top of your question, an incredible environment. Bud Walton Arena holding close to 20K. Great to see that. I actually did watch for about like 10 minutes on earlier on Tuesday or Monday. I watched the YouTube video of when number 2 Auburn went into Arkansas and lost to the Hogs back in 1999. And that was a fun nostalgic trip down memory lane there. Just, the old snout, as you preferred it, by the way, the sloppy hog, not that bitterly angry thing they got going on in the middle of the court these days. The sloppy hog, the slobber hog. But yeah, you can see the box score. You can see the stats here from CBS, courtesy of Nada. on the stream. And the win obviously puts a little bit of chaos into the SEC standings. Auburn still leads the conference at 10-1. Kentucky is now 9-2, and Arkansas, oh, by the way, sitting there at 8-3. So Razorback fans, in the throes of this morning, I think still have some hope that maybe, just maybe, we can pull off a way to finish atop the league standings. We'll see if they get there. That win against Auburn, by the way, for Arkansas is the only time, similar how to Auburn only has to face Kentucky once, only has to face Arkansas once, will not get the Razorbacks back on the plains there. 9 consecutive wins. I haven't done the math, but I got to figure with this kind of resume at this point, Arkansas is looking like a 6 seed, 19-5 overall, maybe even a 5 seed. Their wins early in the season, as you point out from a resume perspective, weren't that worthy. I'd probably go 5 seed. I'm blindly looking at it here for Auburn. Real quick, and then you take it away. Again, Wendell Green Jr. is a fun player, but his shot near the end of that game was horrendous. And Jabari Smith, although he did get off 16 attempts on Tuesday night, which was more than I think the 8 or 9 he had against Georgia. And Smith had a big 3 that kind of cut the deficit and made the game still in doubt late. I still want him to get more touches. It's still kind of bizarre to me. Now they have a lot of guys who can score and play make. I get all that. Wendell Green Jr., Katie Johnson, Alan Flanagan was a significant piece on last year's team, and he's still getting worked into this. He started in the game last night, but I just can't help but wonder if Auburn, and Bruce Pearl's got to know this, but if it's going to be this Final Four national championship team, it's got to have a little more alpha from Jabari more consistently late. And I don't know if that's the exact reason why they didn't pull it out, because again, Jabari had 20 points. It's not like he was lacking, but I just thought there were possessions late in that game where they should have looked to find him more than relying necessarily on Johnson or Green.
How about the final possession of regulation? Shot clock's off. You're in a tie game. Look, I don't mind Wendell Green taking the final shot. I hated that shot. I mean, he got their last 4 field goals in regulation, 4 field goals, final 4 minutes. And 3 of those baskets came on layups. He was getting to the rim. And then he didn't even attempt to get it there. He just pulled from the snout. He wanted to win it from the snout, which I understand on a basic human level. It would have been an incredible highlight. But the problem, of course, is he's a 33% 3-point shooter. Why are you pulling from the snout with the game on the line? Now, I do think we were in one of those situations where if he would have tried to get to the rim again, he would have had to score. They were not going to blow the whistle and call a foul in that moment, or at least it was going to have to be a clear cut. I can't not call this foul. So whatever, but the shot was horrendous. If that were Steph Curry or the woman who plays at Iowa, I'm fine with it. But Wendell Green pulling from the snout at the buzzer.
He ain't Caitlin Clark, that's for sure.
Is outrageous. I'm with you on Jabari. He did get, 16 shots, but and ended up with 20 points. So if you didn't watch the game, it looks okay. Well, he got 16 shots, got 20 points. Wasn't the most efficient player on the court, but he got 20 points on 16 shots. But he had a couple of big shots late that got the point total up there. I'm with you. I didn't think he was prioritized enough in the final minutes of regulation. And, when you are operating with somebody who might be the number 1 pick in the draft, and I love on the, when you're operating with somebody who might be the number 1 pick in the draft, you got to do something to get him a little more involved. After the game, one of the first things Muss said on the postgame interview is that, Auburn was dancing on the Razorback.
Yeah. So,
In fairness to Auburn, if you decide you want to dance, kind of hard not to dance on the Razorback. It's so big, Yeah. It takes up a lot of space.
This seems to be something that's increasing in frequency across American sports, though. This has happened a couple times in college football. The chat's going to remember it off because there's more people that I can't remember, but there was a deal with some sort of team that the other team was on the logo before the game. And this happened, I think, in hoops earlier this season as well. This idea that we're taking great offense to people walking, you're literally stepping over this damn thing for 40 minutes of an entire game. I understand there's a slight difference if maybe you're doing a little bit of celebrating before the competition has begun, but we cannot continue with this. This idea that they're like, they were standing on our logo before the game. We had to do something about it. Get over it. Well, get out of here with that.
Well, I think that it wasn't just standing because, like, you're warming up. You're gonna put your foot on the Razorback.
You can desecrate that logo. If we're talking Hoggy from 99, then we got a problem. But not this one. Come on.
So here's the problem with this taking great offense to people dancing on your logo is that your logo takes up half the court. It's gigantic. Beyond that, you've been to a basketball game and got courtside early. There's music blaring.
True.
And some people's natural instinct is to dance a little bit. So were they actually I don't know. I mean, I didn't have eyeballs on this. I'm sitting in a studio in New York. But were they actually dancing on the logo to be offensive, to try to agitate you? Or were they just bouncing around pregame and happened to be dancing? And if you paused it and said, hey, look down, it's like, oh, wow, I'm on the logo. How big of a deal is that? I don't know. On the other hand, whatever you got to do to get motivated, I guess do it. It seemed to work out. Arkansas gets the win. So back to the Razorbacks resume, because there was a lot of this over the past week from Arkansas fans. Like, why are we not ranked? We've won 8 in a row and all that stuff. And like, if you wanted to, this is where how your approach to ranking teams is, it's very subjective. You can do it a variety of ways. Sometimes you can do it without even like caring who wins or loses games. If you just wanted to say they're hot, who's the hottest teams in the country right now, then Arkansas could be wherever you wanted to put them. They had, won 8 straight games. But even after last night's win, they're still just 2-3 in quadrant 1, 6-0 in quadrant 2. So 8-3 in the first 2 quadrants with 2 quadrant 3 losses. Like, I'm trying to think. I don't think there's anybody else that I have ranked in the top 25-1 with 2 quadrant 3 losses. Like, that's an abnormally high number, even at 2, for a team that is, ranked in the top 25, or for my purposes, top 25-1. So before last night, they had 1 quadrant 1 win and 2 quadrant 3 losses. I don't believe there was a single computer, or there certainly weren't many, that would have had them in the quote unquote top 25. So I still don't think it was crazy to not have Arkansas ranked prior to last night's win. But after last night's win, 9 in a row and a win over an Auburn team that had won 19 straight, then obviously I'll get you into the top 25-1. Should be noted, Auburn was without its point guard, Zep Jasper. Yes. He didn't even make the trip to Fayetteville because of a non-COVID illness. And it should also be noted that it's not all bad for Auburn. Like, some perspective does matter. They went into a hostile environment. I mean, Muss said after the game, there won't be a crowd better than this in the next 50 years. It was wild. And they played a good team, and they traded punches, and they had a chance to win the game, obviously. They're still 22-2 overall. They've got an SEC best 10-1 record in league games. That's a great 24-game body of work. They're 12-2 in the first 2 quadrants. Still have 0 losses in regulation. 19-1 in the past 20 games. And yes, I did move Gonzaga to number 1 in the top 25-1 on Wednesday morning, because now these are both 2-loss teams, and the Zags don't have the 12-2 record in the first 2 quadrants that Auburn has. Doesn't have the 7 quadrant 1 wins that Auburn has, but some of that's just league affiliation at this point. They don't have the same opportunities, and they are beating everybody's brains in right now. Like, Gonzaga is a full 6 points better than everybody else in the country when it comes to adjusted efficiency margin, according to KenPom. So I have moved Gonzaga to number 1 in the top 25-1, but Auburn, I moved them down to 2. And if the AP voters on Monday, assuming Auburn wins this weekend and Gonzaga also wins, as it has been doing, you could actually make a case, if you're just ranking on resume, that Auburn still has the best resume in the country. But I think most people are going to move Gonzaga to number 1 That's fine. That's what I did. But you really should not move Auburn any lower than number 2.
Cool. What else we got?
Well, before we get to other interesting developments from Tuesday night, because there were a few, I do want to back up to Monday night because there was a buzzer beater in Cameron Indoor. Deadleg was on to something on Sunday's podcast. We'll do that next. But first, a word from our sponsors.
We're here. Let's go save some lives.
Wow.
Is that safe?
This isn't an easy mission, and there may be a few surprises.
Come on!
Is this where I get to say I was born ready?
I'm gonna figure this thing out, whatever it takes. It's gonna be close.
We do our best work when it's close.
So before we get to other interesting developments from Tuesday night, I do want to back up to Monday night because Deadleg, you sort of had this one on your radar. You suggested on Sunday's podcast that Virginia would be competitive at Duke despite being an 11-point underdog. I was dismissive of your prediction. And then Virginia went and won at Duke 69-68 on a Reese Beekman 3 at the buzzer. What did you know that I didn't know? I was wrong.
Just had that sense, man. How about that? How about that game? Man, Virginia. I did think that coming 2 days off of the Carolina, listen, I was effectively guessing, but whatever. Like 2 days off of the Carolina game, obviously hugely emotional. Mike Krzyzewski alluded to this after the loss. He said something along the lines of, we have to stay hungry even after we've eaten or whatever. And he was basically saying, Carolina is obviously a huge, huge game that takes
terrible diet plan, by the way.
Well,
that's an awful approach to dieting.
Yeah, but applied as a metaphor to trying to win basketball games, I can understand what he was saying there. You're 48 hours removed from a road game at Carolina that just takes up so much of your inventory emotionally and spiritually. You got to turn around and on 2 days and play Virginia, which hasn't been good this year, but it has one of the best coaches in the sport, and you weren't ready. Reese Beekman, big time player all around, just in terms of his defense, his shooting capability. Now, we talked about Jabari Smith. You can see the box here on the stream. We talked about what Jabari Smith, Paolo Banchero disappeared down the stretch of this game, and AJ Griffin only played 24 minutes. He wasn't even a factor. He had a complete 180 from the AJ Griffin we had seen in the previous 3 games. So my quick thoughts on Duke are losses like home losses to Miami and Virginia now. ACC is not that good. Duke has a very narrow window to get a number 1 seed at this point. It can probably maybe afford to lose one more game. And then otherwise it's going to have no shot at a number 1 seed. This stuff adds up overall. Kind of stunning to see Banchero be that much of a non-factor for a lot of the second half. But I will give credit to Virginia, which had a wonderful game plan and then made a second 3-pointer in the closing seconds. I heard on PTI on Tuesday as I was making dinner for my kids, I heard Tony Kornheiser say when they were talking about this game, he didn't give me the 2 other instances, but I know one of them is Stephen F. Austin. He said that Virginia winning in the final 2 seconds at Cameron marked only the 3rd time in 25 years that a team won at Cameron in the final 2 seconds. One was Stephen F. Austin, one was Virginia. I don't know who the 3rd one is, though. I tried to research it, and I don't know who that would have been. I'm not there with Virginia being a bubble team just yet. They're not there.
But they're not close.
Here's their. Well, I got their numbers. Do you want to read them off? Because I got them in front of me.
Knock yourself out. Okay,
so they're 81st in the net. Their best team sheet ranking right now is 58 in BPI, but everything else is in the 70s. What is it? 50? Well, it's technically 57 in Sagarin, but 2 quad 1 wins. Quad 1, quad 2 combined is 6-6, respectable enough. This team has 3. It not only does have 3 quad 3 losses, it is sub 500 in quad 3. So you're right. I don't think Virginia is close at this point. If we want to define close as take the cut line and then, first 4 out, next 4 out, then you get to Virginia, in my opinion, at this point. They're too far down, but it's a big time win. And Virginia's been able to peel off some victories here to at least, bring some signs of life to its season. 76 in Ken Palm, 3 in a row. Next will be home against Georgia Tech, then at Virginia Tech. You get to 17-9, 11-5, and then a down ACC. Then we can maybe have a little bit of a chat here. But yeah, Tony Bennett, final time playing K in Cameron. He gets the W there, and going to Cavaliers. Duke's still good. Has 4 losses. Lost to Ohio State by 5, Miami by 2, Florida State by 1, Virginia by 1. 4 losses, combined 9 points. Interesting team. I think its window, its room for error for any more defeats and still to be on the 1 line is very narrow at this point.
Well, here's another problem for them. So now they've got the 1 quadrant 3 loss, a home loss to Virginia. Virginia is, 80th, 81st in the net. So there's a chance Virginia gets inside the top 75, and that turns into a quadrant 2 loss. But the other issue is Miami is like 72nd, 73rd in the net. So if Virginia stays outside the top 75 and Miami slips to 76 or lower, which is obviously very possible, well, now you've got a resume with 2 quadrant 3 losses. Again, as somebody who looks at this stuff every day, most of the best teams in the country have 0 quadrant 3 losses. A few have 1. Arkansas has 2, which I told you was the main reason they weren't getting ranked.
Bama also has 2.
Yeah, Bama's all over the place. But like most of the best, like you start going through the teams that are considered the best in the country. Gonzaga obviously has 0. Houston has 0. Arizona has 0. We're talking quadrant 3 losses. Kentucky 0, Purdue 0, Villanova 0, Auburn 0, Kansas 0, Baylor 0, Texas Tech 0, Tennessee 0, Illinois 0, Texas 0, Ohio State 0, UConn 0, Wisconsin 0, St. Mary's 0, Iowa 0. No, I'm going to go 358. I'm going to go through the whole thing.
Here we go. Let's go. All right.
Yeah, just sit tight for a second. Michigan State 0. I'm going to Providence 0, Loyola Chicago 0, and then you've got a handful of teams with 1. UCLA has 1, LSU has 1, and Duke has got 1 and is on the verge of 2. I hope that illustrated just how uncommon it is for a team the caliber of Duke to have these types of losses in the loss column. If not, I can keep going.
Can you say 0 again?
0.
There we go.
You ready for this?
Yeah.
San Diego State 0, TCU 0.
Give me another.
Kansas State 0. West Virginia, they lose every time they play. 0 quadrant 3 losses. Although they did beat Iowa State on Tuesday night. Yeah. Oh no, now we're getting to the point where Ohio Bobcats 0. Duke's on the verge of having 2 quadrant 3 losses. Ohio has 0.
Well, I'll tell you this. Obviously, if Duke gets if the net
Minnesota 0.
All right. If the net breaks to the point
where Wagner 0.
Longest win streak in the country because Auburn lost, by the way, 13 in a row.
Louisiana Tech 0. Maryland's got 3. That's tough.
That's a problem right there.
No wonder Mark Turgeon quit.
If Duke doesn't have another bad loss and just Miami and Virginia wind up being Q3 losses, it's not going to be able to overcome that and get a 1 seed. And 2 quad 3 losses for a 1 seed, I don't see that being a thing. I don't see that happening. But hey, we got a little bit of drama, a little bit of spice in the ACC. Anything else from Monday you want to get to?
Montana.
Okay.
0 quadrant 3 wins, but 3 quadrant 3 losses. That's tough. That's a problem for Montana's at-large hopes.
That is a problem. Yeah, that's no.
The only other thing from Monday, Texas beat Kansas and moved into the top 15 at KenPom. It looks like Chris Beard is starting to get that thing together. Obviously he tried to overhaul the Texas roster. Not tried, he did via the transfer portal. And, they went through a little bit of a bumpy stretch in January, I guess. But now, they're playing well consistently. It's a team that has won 5 of its past 6. And the only loss in that stretch is that wild game at Texas Tech. In that stretch, they now beaten Tennessee, Iowa State, Kansas. And like I said, up to 14th at KenPom. It looks like the Longhorns are rounding into something closer to what most of us thought they'd be in the preseason.
Yeah, big shot by Timmy Allen. He had a really nice game, 24 points in that one. Courtney Ramey really stepped up on the defensive end, and Texas played itself a nice game. No Remy Martin again for Kansas, and I think some of the point guard concerns that Bill Self has expressed about earlier in the season showed up to a certain point there. DeJuan Harris, who does so many good things on the defensive side of the ball, to ask him to be your lead point guard for the remainder of the season. He just, it's going to be a little bit by committee here. They need Remy Martin back to kind of add some more, because like Joseph Yosefu, who's come over from Drake, has not been, I think, what they expected him to be. Ochai Agbaji plays better off the ball. Yes, he can obviously handle it. Christian Brown can do that if you need him to. But no shame in the loss. I mean, KU's 19-4. How many quad 3 losses for Kansas, by the way?
0.
Okay, there we go.
Also, by the way,
yeah,
Missouri 0.
Okay,
that's actually surprising.
It is. I'm a little surprised by that. Yeah, big win for Texas. It happened a couple nights ago, so we're a little bit removed from it, but we had to mention it. That's a real resume builder at 18-6 and 7-4 in the league. Chris Beard was able to get a nice win, get 2 in a row after, just throttling Iowa State. That game got a little bit lost in the mix on Saturday because there were a lot of other high-profile games, and that game was on the Longhorn Network, so almost nobody saw it. So now Texas has won 5 of its past 6, the lone loss, of course, being the Texas Tech defeat from 8 days ago. But, yeah, just quality win for the Longhorns. Chris Beard's doing a good job in the big picture. No, this team is not played up to no fault of its own, really. I mean, I guess some of its fault it lost the games, but I didn't think Texas was a preseason top 5 team. Some others might have thought that, but still a quality team, and will have a chance at showing themselves well in the NCAA tournament. Big 12 is a really, really good league, and the loss for Kansas now means that the Jayhawks have a 1-game lead in the loss column on Baylor and Tech, which are 7-3 teams. KU is 8-2 in the Big 12.
On to Tuesday, which is just jam-packed every week now. We were in studio last night. Adam Zucker described Tuesday as Baby Saturday. It really has become the busiest day of the week for college basketball, other than Saturday. And I don't know if it's always been that way. Has it always been that way?
No, it's been that way this season to an extent, because like you had Pac-12 and WCC makeup games on Tuesday, and that those West Coast leagues never played on Tuesdays and Mondays normally, so that has been part of it. But yeah, Tuesday's pretty packed. Wednesday traditionally is the most populated non-Saturday day, but Tuesday's been a lot of fun. And yeah, last night was just one after another. A lot of stuff to kind of keep track on deep into the night with the WCC and UCLA stuff.
Ooh, boy, don't talk to me about deep into the night. When you got to wait till 1:20 to do a C block for Inside College Basketball.
You had to talk on TV. I had to write a Shaun White column. So
yeah. All I had to do was a Santa Clara highlight and call it a night. So I had
to make sure Shaun White's competitive snowboarding career wasn't over at like 1:15 in the morning. So
all right, okay, I'll stop complaining. Stop complaining. Purdue beat Illinois by 16 on Tuesday night. So this is weird. This is a weird thing that's happening. Internet alive and well in West Lafayette, but wildly unreliable throughout the rest of Indiana, because Indiana suspended 5 players on Tuesday and then lost to Northwestern. Johnny Davis got 25 points. Wisconsin won inside the Breslin Center. Adama Sanogo finished with 24 and 15. UConn beat Marquette. And as I mentioned, Santa Clara upset St. Mary's.
Yeah.
Pushed St. Mary's down to 26 in Wednesday morning's updated top 25 and 1. And for Santa Clara, they were 0 and 43 in their previous 43 games against ranked teams. Now 1 and 43 in the past 44. Shouts to Herb Sendek. I got a lot.
That team's good, by the way. It is. No, Santa Clara is a good team, and they had some buzz earlier in the season because they started off. They were 5-0, 6-0. Has rated as a top 100 KenPom team since basically the week before Christmas. I remember they beat TCU and Stanford, so they made some noise. Then they took on some losses. Now they also, you got to really be on the weeds on this, but they had a couple of their better players out for a few games, and so that wound up being a significant factor in why they weren't able to kind of keep winning. And now they're a real team in the WCC. So let's train in on the WCCC for a minute for a second, because Santa Clara holds serve at home. St. Mary's takes the loss. Parrish, I don't have the net up in front of me. Hold on, I'm gonna look at this real quick. Was that a Q2 or Q1 for so Santa Clara? St. Mary's is on the road. That's a Q1.
Of course it is. Yeah, first quadrant one win of the season for Santa Clara. They do have 3 quadrant 3 losses, so that bangs up your at-large resume pretty badly.
Oh yeah, they're not an at-large team. They would need to. I think they literally would need to win out to the WCC title game, and maybe they'd have an interesting conversation if we got to that point. But St. Mary's takes a loss, quad 1, so they're still okay. San Francisco loses to Portland at home. That is a quad 4 loss.
Ooh.
San Francisco was at one point 10-0, then 13-1. It's now 19-6, 6-4 in the WCC. It was a back-to-back. So USF won on Saturday by 3 at Portland. Comes back, 3-day turnaround, makeup game, loses by 1. It was by 1. It was a 4-point deficit, and there was a half-court shot that sank to give it the final margin there. The Dons are not out of it, but this is problematic. They still have to play at Santa Clara, at Pacific, which, oh, by the way, has defeated BYU and almost beat USC on Tuesday night. Suddenly, Pacific's one of the 30 best teams in the country. Had no idea. Leonard Perry's doing a nice job, but USF still got to go on the road to play Pacific. They have to play at St. Mary's. They have to host Gonzaga. I hate to say it because Todd Golden's a really good young coach, but it's feeling like the Dons will need to probably steal the auto bid out of the WCC. I just don't see a scenario in which they've got 6 games remaining. 4 of them are on the road. You're going to need to win at least 4 of those games in any kind of order. You're going to have to steal one against St. Mary's on the road or beat Gonzaga at home to keep the at-large resume alive. So
this is the problem with the WCC, by the way. The problem taking any job in that league. First off, the Gonzaga job never opens. The St. Mary's job never opens. Really, any other job in that league other than BYU?
Which is leaving, yes.
Yeah. It's like, what do you do? It's very difficult to build an at-large resume playing a WCC schedule, and you can't get the at-large because of Gonzaga. So what are you supposed to do? At least in another league like the WCC, there's not some monster in there. I don't know. Let's say you're in the let me pick a conference here. I'll pick whatever's right. The Atlantic 10, which is right below the West Coast Conference, according to KenPom. So let's say you're in the Atlantic 10, and it's hard to build an at-large resume in the Atlantic 10. But at least you go to the tournament, and you're like, well, who can we not beat? I mean, Davidson might be the best, but we could play with them, maybe. If you're Dayton or VCU, you're like, okay, we can maybe play with them. We can win this tournament and get the at-large and get the automatic bid. But if you're any of these teams going into the West Coast Conference tournament, there is no hope for you. It's a tough deal.
Tough deal. I would say so. San Francisco,
it'd be like if you're in the Missouri Valley Conference with Duke.
It's pretty much what it is. San Francisco's 41st in the net. It's 30th in KPI, but everything else is, anywhere between 44 and 58 right now. It will need to either win at St. Mary's or beat Gonzaga at home, and then it can't lose to Pepperdine. Can't lose at Pacific. Can't lose at San Diego. We'll see. Dons are a good team, but they are now in a tight spot. That loss was problematic in a major way. And they played a really close, good game back when they rescheduled against Loyola Chicago. Ramblers won that one. So a noisy night out west. To the games you mentioned, let's go to the other big game from Tuesday. But I do want to hit on everything you talked about. Purdue wallops Illinois. Mackey was on fire. Just an incredible watch. A couple huge takeaways from this game. One is Jaden Ivey. I'm not saying I want to be clear about this. I am not saying I would take Jaden Ivey first in the NBA draft, but there are sometimes stretches when I watch this guy play and I'm like, he is an NBA player playing at the college level. He took over that game, man. There was nothing Illinois could do to stop him. It was a phenomenal performance, one of the better second half performances of any player I've seen. And I'm like all aboard the Jaden Ivey top 5 NBA pick at this point. I don't know if I can be talked off of it. In fact, if he truly commits to wanting to be an above average defender and wants it on that end of the floor, man, sky's the limit for this dude. Purdue was phenomenal.
I think everybody is on the Jaden Ivey as a top 5 pick, though.
Everybody? I don't know. I haven't.
I think everybody's basically Jabari Smith, Paulo Banchero, Chet Holmgren in some order, Jaden Ivey, and then now we start talking maybe Johnny Davis after that.
How about the Big Ten maybe having the top 2 guards in the country from a production standpoint in college and from an NBA projection? Tell me the last time the Big Ten, genuinely curious, last time the Big Ten had the top 2 NBA guard prospects in college basketball. I don't know. Ivy was fantastic, though. And Purdue, when I watched this game, I thought to myself, I don't know what's going to happen in the next month, but it is going to be really hard for me not to put this team minimally into the Final Four. I know the defense, yeah, whatever. This team is so good on offense and has so many different ways to kill you. I think they are more than happy to just roll out the ball and just sprint with anyone that wants to sprint with them and say, beat us. Try and beat us to 80. Try and beat us to 85. Try and beat us to 90. Last night, Ivy was the best player, but Eric Hunter was terrific with what he was able to do on both ends of the floor. Caleb First had a big bucket at one point. Zach Edey goes for another. Ho-hum, oh, by the way, 13. What do you want from me? Man, Stefanovic will go 3 or 4 games and he's just kind of there, and then you know that he's liable to go 4 for 7 from 3 on any given night. Travion Williams played 15 minutes last night and Purdue won the game with these. I'm still in on Illinois. I thought the game would be closer. Thankfully, Trent Frazier's not seriously injured. He banged knees with Ivy on a screen, and he was up and moving around shortly thereafter. So that's a good thing. Alfonso Plummer, still one of the best shooters in the country. Coburn at 18, and they were able to neutralize some of that. Curbelo still didn't start. Again, going back to my piece with on Illinois when I talked with Brad Underwood, he's still got to be worked back in. Like, Curbelo played 21 minutes. Underwood told me he's not going to be able to go like hard 30, 35 minutes in a game until at least March. He's just not in that kind of condition. We're going to get him there. He's running more than anyone else in practice. Like, he's trying to get there, but you just still don't have Curbelo at full strength. You go into that building, it's on fire. Good on Purdue, man. I can't get off this team. They're too awesome on offense. They're too fun. I will not be surprised if someone takes them out and say the Elite Eight. I think I would be surprised if they go down before that, though. I think they're that good on offense and have that many options that even though defensively there can be issues, they practically let Curbelo waltz to a layup to close the first half. Too much on O. Do you agree?
I agree that they're awesome offensively. I am concerned about the defensive end of the court because, as we've talked about for years now, no matter how aesthetically pleasing something is, how visually pleasing something is, teams that guard this way don't usually get where they want to get to. And Iowa last season was a great example. Amazing offensively, and then they get into, let me double check before I say something incorrect. They get to the second round of the NCAA tournament, and they just get destroyed. Like, Oregon scores 95 on them and beats them by 15 points. I'm not predicting that for Purdue, by the way. I do think I could easily see them. I will have them in my Elite Eight minimum as well. I think, just because they've got everything you want: experience, NBA talent, great coach, awesome offense. But that defense is a real problem, and that is what concerns me. If you're trying to get to the Final Four for the first time since 1980, you defenses like that make it more difficult than it should be based on all the other stuff that's in place. But I saw our friend Seth Davis tweet this last night about how he's openly rooting for Purdue to get to the Final Four. And I think if you're a college basketball fan, like, you've got your favorite team, sure, but if you're just an observer of the sport beyond that, as long as you're not an Indiana fan, I guess, I totally am on board with wanting to see Purdue get there. They've got a transcendent star in Jaden Ivey. They've got, one of the best coaches in the country, who is on the list of best coaches never to get to a Final Four yet. Who's also like, everybody likes Matt Painter. Like he's funny. He's awesome at his job. He's easy to talk to. Everybody likes that. I've never heard anybody say a bad word about Matt Painter. The fans are awesome. From a selfish perspective, like I want Duke in the Final Four because I think it would be awesome to have Mike Krzyzewski in his final year in New Orleans with a chance to win another national title. Like I just think that's the biggest storyline you could get. Outside of that, I'd love to see Gonzaga there because I want to see the Zags have another chance to win a national title. But like Purdue is on the list of teams that I would like to see get there for all the reasons I just noted.
Going back to what we talked about Sunday with so many interesting national title contenders, there's a lot of fascinating personnel, player versus player, coach versus coach, and team versus team, program versus program matchups in the Elite Eight or the Final Four. I love chaos in the bracket. This might be one of those years where I love seeing the really good teams too. Obviously, that's best for the sport in many ways. But having an Elite Eight with nothing but either ones, twos, or threes might be the best thing because of how many different kinds of teams, different kind of stars we have. Sticking in the Big Ten, Wisconsin 70-62 at Breslin. We now have a three-way tie atop the standings, 10-3 for Purdue, Illinois, and Wisconsin. Ohio State also has 3 losses, so it's tied in the loss column. Ohio's just played 3 fewer games to this point. I saw Bart Torvik noted Wisconsin homer, by the way. I know you listen to this podcast, Bart. He said that Wisconsin actually has the 13th easiest remaining schedule in the Big Ten. So it's not inconceivable that Wisconsin actually winds up not just finishing atop the ledger, but maybe he does it in standalone fashion. Wisconsin's the number 1 seed in the Big Ten tournament. That'd be kind of something there. Now they've got a Player of the Year candidate and a potential top 10 pick in Johnny Davis. But yeah, here's Wisconsin's schedule: home to Rutgers, at IU, home to Michigan, at Minnesota, spiraling, at Rutgers, home to Purdue, home to Nebraska. Very, very workable schedule there for the Badgers. Good win on the road. Johnny Davis had 25 points. Tyler Wall, Chucky Hepburn each had 11. Michigan State just remains enigmatic. It's not getting anything near to what it hoped to with Tyson Walker, who was one of the more hyped transfers in the offseason. This usually happens. There just happens to be a couple of guys that are considered top 5, top 10, top 15 worthy in terms of transfers. And then you really look up in February, they haven't been remotely close to that. That's kind of been the case with Michigan and Devontae Jones, and Michigan State with Tyson Walker there. Max Christie's still coming along, but he's freshman. He's inconsistent, and Michigan State just does not have it this year as far as I'm concerned. They need Malik Hall to be better. I would even put Malik Hall in the starting lineup. Izzo has his own reasons for not doing that, and I'll trust him on that. He knows way more about this than I do, but the story there in the Big Ten as well, Wisconsin getting a road win, keeping pace atop the league ledger, and Johnny Davis still keeping his name firmly in the mix for National Player of the Year. I still think I'd go Oscar Tshiebwe in the moment. Kentucky won at South Carolina, but Davis with that kind of performance, yeah, he still stays in the mix, and a good win for Wisconsin, which has been among the more surprising teams big picture this season. They've been relevant since they won Maui, but remember, heading in, this was not a group that was expected to be top 25 level, one of the 3 or 4 best teams in the Big Ten with that roster, and they continue to prove everyone wrong, and they're going to be a comfortable seed once we get to Selection Sunday.
Yeah, the one Tuesday night game that I don't think we touched on other than to acknowledge that it happened, that I did think was notable, was UConn knocking out Marquette in the dribble handoff on Tuesday, where we come up with a question, and then me, you, David Cobb, and often Kyle Boone as well, will answer that question. This question was: take a team outside of the top 15 in the current AP poll that you could envision going to the Final Four. And I went with UConn. And as I explained, when you're looking for somebody who could be an unlikely Final Four participant, take a guess and get lucky is one way to do it, I guess. But beyond that, find somebody that's beaten a great team, that's shown they can do it, because that's what you're going to have to do typically to get there, and that and find a team that's got a banged up resume, but in a way that isn't completely reflective of their actual potential. And for those reasons, UConn made sense to me. They're one of only 2 teams now to have beaten Auburn. They have 6 losses, but 2 of them came when their best player was out. So their record, it is what it is, but some context makes it look a little better. They do have one quadrant 3 loss that might scare you, but it's a loss to Creighton, which is, a projected NCAA tournament team. And well, they are.
No, I'm just saying, that's setting in when you say that. That's all. I'm saying.
If we want to touch on that for a second, Creighton lost everybody from last season's team. Yeah, they were not supposed to be an NCAA tournament team, but Greg McDermott's done a really nice job, and they got another win last night. My point is this about Creighton. They're 76th in the net. I mean, it's literally one spot away from erasing it from your quadrant 3 column.
Yeah.
And by the way, when we talk about this stuff, it's not to imply the selection committee's not smart enough to look at that and see, it's a quadrant 3, but it's to a team that was 76 as opposed to 75. Is there really any difference between that and a quadrant 2? They peek behind the curtains, so to speak. But this UConn team, I'm not picking them to go to the Final Four. But that wasn't the question. Find somebody outside of the top 15 in the AP poll that you could envision doing it. And that UConn team made sense to me yesterday morning. And then they back it up by, knocking out a Marquette team that's, obviously been really, really good for about a 10-game stretch.
Yeah, this was, I thought, a fairly significant game because UConn's schedule upcoming is still going to be pretty daunting. And to get this win, to avoid a 3-game losing streak, to get a sweep of Marquette, also important because UConn's most important wins right now, double OT against Auburn, aging like a fine wine, and 2 wins over Marquette. And then after that, you're looking at DePaul, St. Bonaventure on a neutral. Maybe on a neutral against VCU. That's what UConn has. And now upcoming is at Xavier, at St. John's, which made a late push, but Villanova held off. And looks like Justin Moore and Colin Gillespie should be in good shape going forward. They both played. They both started. So after that, it'll be home to Seton Hall, home to Xavier, home to Nova. That's UConn's upcoming schedule there. So I thought the win was pretty important. Adama Sanogo, Dan Hurley's got to be just thrilled at the way that he played in that game, going for 24 points. And there was even great moments from Andre Jackson, Tyrese Martin, all around. I really, UConn's fascinating to me because I do enjoy the roster. I think they've got a lot of really good pieces. This is a group that if you tell me, all right, UConn's going to be a 7 seed, I'll say it won't stun me if they make the Sweet 16 and upset the 2 in their region because they actually have enough talent, enough size, and the coaching to get there. It's a matter of putting it all together, playing with real motivation. And then just obligatory note, those uniforms need to be the permanent uniforms. What are we doing? You saw them last night, right?
They're great. They're great.
Come on now. I simply don't understand how a university doesn't just convene on a random May Tuesday and say, all right, quite obviously our fan base will there are certain things that tie us to our history and our past. And this is why certain schools never change their uniforms. Certain teams never change their helmets. Why don't we just permanently go back to the thin typeface Connecticut, the old school Husky, little bit of red, great piping down the shorts.
I like
feel good.
To me, the little bit of red is what is
right.
It's the thing that sets it apart.
I agree.
The Dodgers have this. The Dodgers have red in their uniform, and
barely there,
but it's there. And I don't know. There's something about that barely there color.
Yes,
that makes a uniform. I'm not smart enough to explain it, but I know I enjoy it.
It's like the Seahawks have that neon green, just a little bit there, just to kind of make it pop. So UConn, just go back to these uniforms, please. But big win there, Marquette. Not too much concern. Couple other quickies from Tuesday night, and then I actually want to bring up something that's not in our doc that I want to get your opinion on. Wyoming holds off Utah State in overtime in a really, really good game. I think Utah State was going to need that win in order to get into the at-large conversation. Now it's going to really have to peel off a big win streak. Wyoming is cruising toward a really good seed if it can continue. Jeff Linder has done an amazing job. LSU stopped the bleeding.
Wyoming in the top 25-1.
Where do you got them?
22nd, I think. I've had them in there since Sunday night. They are not in the AP poll, but and you know why? I think because they were just totally off everybody's radar, and then they won a Sunday night game. And that made me take a closer look at them. And they're 7-3 in the first 2 quadrants.
Yeah.
I mean, that's good. 11-1 in their past 12 games. I honestly don't think most AP voters had them anywhere on their radar when they were turning in their ballot Sunday night or Monday morning. But if you were re-voting today, there's no way to have a top 25 without having Wyoming's resume in it.
Hunter Maldonado, Graham Ike are fantastic players. This is a very fun team to watch. And I had them in the power rankings a few weeks ago, and they've been fantastic. They will be back there again when I refresh that on Thursday. A nice win for Wyoming there. LSU stopped the bleeding. Won against Texas A&M. It was a road win, so that was important. We mentioned the Indiana thing. They had 5 players suspended for disciplinary reasons. There were rumors and wonderments about why that was. Maybe some marijuana, but then Jeff Rabjohns, who's covered the program diligently for a long time, said that he was of the understanding that was not actually the case. No matter either way, it's a road loss at Northwestern. Indiana's still in a fine spot from a tournament position, but that's a hurtful loss. And I just wanted to, because I mentioned this, what did I mention on a radio interview, I think. Because Indiana didn't have 5 of its players, it doesn't mean that like when the committee evaluates Indiana's resume, it's not going to consider this loss. I think sometimes that stuff gets a little bit overstated by fan bases and maybe even some media members there. Yes, it will probably be noted when they're looking at Indiana, but I don't think Indiana losing at Northwestern because it didn't have 5 players, some of whom were important, will mean like, okay, well then we're not going to put them on the 9 line and we'll make them an 8 instead. I don't think that comes into play, just in case you're curious on that stuff. Carolina won at Clemson. Hubert Davis, see what he said after the game? Did you touch on that on Inside College Basketball, where he was saying, listen, if you're going to get on us about our big bad losses to the big teams, how about some, I'm paraphrasing, but like, how about some credit for winning a tough game on the road here? To that, I say it's Clemson.
I mean, listen, it's a nice win.
It is a nice win. They needed to get it. And credit to Carolina for getting it. But
here's one of my things. There's only 2 outcomes to a basketball game, dead leg. You either win it or you lose it. And a loss would have been obviously devastating. So you do the opposite of that. Win it. It's a good thing. But like, okay, congrats on your quadrant 2 win over Clemson.
I know. But a loss there would have really been, it would have been damaging. Carolina gets it. Brady Manick had some moments there. Armando Bacot went for 24 points and 10 rebounds. He had himself a nice night. UCLA won at Stanford, which it needed. Colorado State, David Roddy is just an absolute baller. David
Roddy is going to be the guy in the NCAA tournament that everybody is pleasuring themselves to on Thursday.
Aggressive, but okay. I can see it. Listen, I actually, it's funny you mentioned that because a week ago, not even a week ago, Friday, one of my younger brothers texted me and said, can't wait to watch my favorite college basketball player tonight. And I checked the schedule and I thought, who's he talking about here? So I responded. I said, you talking David Roddy? He said, absolutely. So you're dead on with that. My brother like loves hoops, but he's like, I love David. And David Roddy's game is impossible not to love. Just an awesome player for a really good team. Yeah, because
most people who are going to be watching the NCAA tournament, they never seen David Roddy. They don't know what they wouldn't be able to name him right now. 6'5", 255 post player who will muscle you at the rim, or like last night, just stepping out and launching threes like he's a gigantic Wendell Green.
Dude, he's got a legitimate handle and can cross over guys too.
Oh, sure.
Very fun player, and was a football recruit coming out of high school. Recruited to like some Minnesota, some other places. But Nico Medved told me earlier this season, we basically sold him on, we know that you can play football and that's it, but we're all in on your basketball future. And I think Colorado State recruited him harder on that vision than any other. Not that the other schools weren't, but it was just like, it was clearly Colorado State was like, you're going to leave the football behind and here's how we can do it. And that basically, it led to Colorado State to where it is today, where David Roddy's been a focal point of that team for years now. And it's going to have its best season in a long time. Going to try and win its first regular season Mountain West championship in school history. I mentioned Kentucky, 86-76 at Carolina. Oscar Tshiebwe had 18 and 14. No Devin Downey situation down in Columbia. So Kentucky gets to 20-4 and again stays a game behind Auburn in the SEC standings. I wanted to bring up one more thing with you, but before I did, do you have anything else on these games?
Zero. I'm done.
Okay. So as we've been recording this podcast, I got a text from Borzello. He shares with me this tweet that our buddy Rob Doster sent. The Horizon League.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I don't think you probably been checking Twitter, but Doster, the Horizon League's official account belonged to Rob Doster, our buddy, He said, this is utterly pathetic, but you know what's even more embarrassing? The Horizon League pre-blocked all national media and to try and avoid facing heat for this. Now, I am not blocked by the Horizon League as of us recording this podcast here, but what this ties to is just like the Colonial did with James Madison, just like the America East did with Stony Brook, now the Horizon League has banned UIC from all postseason competition for the remainder of the academic year. That goes for all winter sports, notably basketball for the purpose of this podcast, but also spring sports, because UIC is going to go to the Missouri Valley later this year. Obviously, this is complete BS. We have not addressed this topic, I don't think, at all. Maybe a little bit with James Madison earlier in the season when they beat Virginia, maybe. But first of all, you can't be blocking national media if you're the Horizon League. You deserve to get dragged even more than the America East was rightfully dragged less than 2 weeks ago for pulling this BS with Stony Brook. And this idea that if you're a conference and you want to have these kind of protocols in place to prevent schools from leaving your league to go somewhere else, I got news for you. There is conference realignment essentially almost every single year. I don't think most fans might realize this, but because not every year do we have power conference realignment. But at the lower levels in Division I, usually there's at least one school, multiple, that will be switching leagues. This happens every single year. You're not going to stop this from happening. And I talked to a couple of people that are high-ranking in college athletics in the past week and a half or so, Parrish, two of whom are conference commissioners who spoke on background about this. And they're saying, they told me if it was us and if I'm talking with my presidents, we're not having this. There's nothing that stops a conference from saying, all right, if you're going to do this, then we're going to financially punish you. If your conference tournament games can be played at home, you're not going to get those at home anymore. You're going to be taking all the financial benefits of being in our league. Those now entirely go to the league. And oh, by the way, if just for as an example, like if Stony Brook made the tournament out of the America East gets that money. It's not Stony Brook that gets the NCAA tournament units. It gets split up in the future among the leagues. So it's not like Stony Brook would be profiting off of this. Now, UIC is not a tournament level team. Stony Brook is actually good enough to be a top 3 team in the America East, but it's a joke, Parrish. The student athletes, the players, the people that, NCAA types want to wax poetic about their general well-being all too often, they're the ones that get entirely screwed out of this. They're not involved in the decision-making. UIC college players had no say over whether or not they go to the Missouri Valley or stay in the Horizon League. And now you've got a bunch of pissed off adults acting like, petty exes and doing stuff that's, completely Bush League. So this came down officially on Wednesday. It had been reported earlier in the week by Matt Brown of Extra Points, and I had gotten word on it as well. I'm not surprised by it, but this should be changing going forward. You can do things that can punish an institution that's leaving your conference, but the idea that these seniors, Parrish, I'm talking men's basketball, field hockey, baseball, whatever, don't get to play in the postseason because a bunch of other adults made this decision. It's a joke, and the Horizon League, just like the Colonial, just like the America East, deserve rightful criticism for just thinking that is so outdated. I'm kind of shocked that it's still around.
Horizon League still follows me, by the way, on Twitter.
All right, good. Not blocked either. Okay, there we go.
They'll have the top 25 and 1 very, very soon. As you point out, Illinois Chicago's not going to the NCAA tournament anyway. So I guess if I were in that office, like trying to help them navigate this situation, I would say, just leave it alone. The team you're trying to punish, the school you're trying to punish, they're not going to the NCAA tournament in men's basketball. Nobody cares about any of the other stuff. Let's just leave it alone. Let it go. Because the alternative is to do what they're doing, and they'll get dragged by a few people. Most people won't even know. Like when I talked to my wife this afternoon, she's going to have no idea that the Horizon League has punished Illinois Chicago.
Ellie Parrish not locked in on the Horizon League right now?
She doesn't even know the Horizon League exists. Okay?
Same with my wife. 100% the same with my no shot. Not even close. Yeah.
So if I were the Horizon League, I would have just left it alone, because you're creating this thing that's eliminating the possibility of something that is wildly unlikely to happen anyway. And I know the other sports are part of this, but nobody cares about the other sports. I don't mean that literally. Some people do care about some of the other sports. I guess all of the other sports. Like if your kid plays, maybe you care. But nobody's out there tweeting about some softball team's not going to be allowed to go to whatever. I don't think. If so, I apologize. That's not the point. The point is this. I just leave it alone. because you're causing a stir for no great reason. And I know you and Seth Davis have gone back and forth in this in a group text, because I was in the middle of it when I was trying to record radio one afternoon.
Seth was on one. I don't know.
And I was like, all right, guys, y'all got to calm down. I'm trying to.
No, I wasn't even trying to respond that much because I knew you were busy. I'm like, we can take this offline. And like, it wasn't like that back. But yeah, Seth's like going all in on why it's on the school. And I was just, but it's not just on the school. That's the whole point. Go ahead. I'm trying to talk
about Desmond Bain live on radio right now. You guys have got to calm down in the group text. And I understand his point that there are contracts, and please, because I clocked out of the group text at some point, so correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to misrepresent Seth's point, but best I can remember, his point seemed to be there are contracts. You're running a league. You do what's in the best interest of your league, and if somebody wants to leave your league, then eliminating them from postseason possibilities to ensure that one of your current and forever members, although that word is not quite accurate, they're the only ones that have an opportunity to benefit from postseason opportunities. Is that more or less his position?
Yeah, basically. And he basically puts it more on, if you're going to get angry, be mad at the institution. They're the one that made the decision to leave. And, the conferences have the right to kind of put up these barriers and these punishments. The leagues are aware of these rules when they're in place. I get that. My point is, it's 2022. And literally talking to people whose job it is to run conferences have told me, wish they'd say it officially on the record, but you know how these people can be sometimes. They said there's nothing stopping conferences from saying, if you're going to leave, here are the new ones. We are not going to stop college players from being eligible to compete in the postseason, because it's highly unfair to a faction of your conference, people playing in these games that have no say on what's happening. So, is it the biggest deal in the world? No, but is it something worth getting pissed over? I kind of think it is, because it's easy to say, oh, it's just the America East, it's just the Colonial, it's just the Horizon League, who really cares? When in fact, it affects literally the lives of, hundreds and hundreds of people that invest a lot of their lives. And so, yeah, they're playing in Division I college basketball. This is a national college basketball podcast. Thought it deserved a little bit of chatter here at the end of this episode. Horizon League should do better. And by the way, I don't know if they're going to be successful, but I do know that UIC and Stony Brook, they're lawyering up to do whatever they can to try and get this reversed. I don't know if they can. I don't know, but there's going to be a little more saber rattling with all this, because it's just I hate how this is done in the middle of a season, and suddenly, the UIC athletes, even though they're not the best team, they look up and they're like, okay, so we're going to be done playing. Let me look at it real quick for just to be official on this, Parrish. UIC will not be eligible to play in the Horizon League tournament, which means it's not going to play in the NCAA tournament because it's not an at-large team, obviously. And that means that its season will officially end on February 26th. So in 17 days, they'll play Milwaukee at home. And then, the seniors on that team, they're just done. It doesn't sit well with me whatsoever. And the Horizon League deserves all the heat that's coming its way.
I guess where I would land on this is, I understand Seth's point, which is you're running in this case, the Horizon League, and you run it. And there are contracts that allow you to do this. They're not violating anything. It is in the contract that they're allowed to do this. And so they're merely exercising their contractual rights and looking out for the schools and the athletic departments that are going to remain in the Horizon League. And if you're running a business, and that is what the Horizon League is, then what is so wrong about running a business in your best interest within your contractual rights? I get that. I totally get it. By the way, and as you point out, it punishes student athletes who have nothing to do with this. How different is that than a postseason ban? How different is that than what the NCAA just did to Oklahoma State? Yep. All right. Yep. It's kind of the same thing. Falls under the same umbrella.
Just as wrong in many ways, yes.
Or just as okay in many ways. Like NCAA says, we got to punish somebody, and you're the people there. So, I guess here's what I would say. I understand all of that. But where I would land on it, this is one of those where I could argue either side, I think, fairly well. But I think where I would land on it is, it's wrong. these student athletes, if you went to, because now I'll separate this from a postseason ban in Oklahoma State. If you enrolled at Oklahoma State, you knew when you did it that this was a possibility. Hey, you might be going to a place, they got an NCAA cloud hanging over their head. They could get hit with a postseason ban. You might not be able to play in the NCAA tournament. Like when Muss transferred to Oklahoma State, he and his people knew you might be walking into a situation that gets hit with a postseason ban. They decided to go anyway. They get hit. I agree with you. I don't think the punishment fit the crime, but you knew what was possible. There's not a player at Illinois Chicago who, when they enrolled at Illinois Chicago, knew that they might have their postseason aspirations ripped away midseason because of an administration's decision to change leaks. And to punish those student athletes for what administrators decided to do in the best interest of their school, I think is just fundamentally wrong. And the punishment seems to be on some level a possible deterrent. Like, hey, if you don't want this to happen to you, then don't start bouncing around leagues. Yeah. But as well as I do, that ain't never going to stop anybody.
It's not going to stop, and this literally happens every year. Again,
right. Yeah.
This isn't a rare thing. College basketball, specifically 32 conferences on an almost annual, if not annual basis. At least one school is switching leagues every year, and we're going to have more this year. We'll have more next year, the year after. This isn't slowing that process.
Right. Not at all. And it shouldn't, because if you're running a university, you should not let a short-term issue deter you from what's in your long-term best interest. So it doesn't work as a deterrent at all. Illinois Chicago should have done what was best for Illinois Chicago, regardless of what it might mean to its current student athletes. I think everybody would agree with that. Or at least I think most people would agree with that. But it does stink that the current student athletes are being punished in a way that perhaps isn't meaningful to the men's basketball players, because they're probably, even if they were allowed to do everything everybody else is, they probably weren't getting there. But, and I don't follow every team at UIC, but there is a team. I'm assuming there's a team on that campus that does have real postseason aspirations, and they're not going to be able to see those through now. No fault of their own. And I do think that's fundamentally unfair. Again, I can argue both sides, but if I had to land on one side or the other, I'd land on the side of this is a pretty lousy thing to do, because it doesn't actually really accomplish all these things that you think it's accomplishing. It just seems mostly petty.
Agreed.
Can we go?
Let's go.
Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Jacob Newbert. He's a legend. Shouts to Larnell. Thank you guys once again for listening to Eye on College Basketball Podcast, middle of the dumbest pandemic of my lifetime. Dr. Fauci said we might be coming out of it, though. Did you see that?
Did not.
He's optimistic. He's optimistic. So that's good news. Oh boy, it's been wild. I never seen one like this until this one. Eye-opening. If you're not subscribed yet, please go subscribe anywhere you subscribe to podcasts, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. While you're there, please, 5 stars, and leave a nice review at Apple Podcasts. There's more of us than there are of them. Don't ever forget that. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel yet, please knock that out. We've been begging you for feels like forever. So knock that out while you're watching. Smash that like button like you're Brandon Davies. He risked a trip to the Final Four to smash. You ain't risking anything. So just hit the like button. We're going to talk to you again on Friday morning. Till then, take care.